all these things hitting critical mass now, and then coinciding, not coincidentally, with the solar minimum is, things have been happening gradually for a long time, but by the time people wake up, it's going to be all of a sudden, and a lot of people are going to suffer because of it. But I agree. I think that's what it's going to take, and not everybody's going to make it. We all have choice, and we all want to be empathetic and help people as much as we can. But if people fail to just understand what's going on and stay in denial, then you can't fix that for them.
Welcome to another episode of AlphaCast. We're here today with a very special guest, David DuByne from the Adapt 2030 YouTube channel. You may know him from his daily talks about the Grand Solar Minimum. And of course, we also have Dr. Berre Lando on with us today. It's going to be a really fun show today as we get into solutions for the oncoming cold we'll be facing with the Grand Solar Minimum. There's all the scientific evidence and precedents for what we're dealing with is there. We don't want to get too bogged down with that today. Today we're going to focus more on solutions and what we can do for our own sovereignty and empowering ourselves to not only get through these times ahead, but also to really thrive in these times.
Well, I was of the volition that people would take more action once things would become worse. So the reason I put out that publication with all the greenhouse designs and all the easiest plants to grow and all the different hardiness zones and going out wild foraging, wild crafting, and all these kind of as a compendium of information and, wallopinis from all, there's so many different techniques out there. I threw it all in one book and said, go at it. But I think that's it. When things become difficult enough, I think at that point, people are going to seek more solutions, because if it's too easy, and life's pretty easy, most people are walking along oblivious right now. They don't really want to change anything anyway. They're not looking forward to the changes. They're just going to be like, oh no, I don't want anything to change. I'm so scared it's changing. That's kind of the crowd I was saying. Here's something so you don't have to be like that. Something at your fingertips that if it does get too tough, at least there's some information out there that will help you or allow you another step in a different direction. I think that's about all we can do, because as my personal experience, I started the channel early 2015, just in January or so, and we got through those massive record snows all across New York City and Boston, and that year had the most snow ever recorded. And I thought, all right, well, this might be really game on, because I'd been studying the Grand Solar Minimum since I was a coffee buyer in Myanmar, and I had been talking with John Casey during that time. Never really did much with the channel. Just, I was a coffee buyer. I saw the cold damage down in Myanmar, reached out to John Casey because he had a lot of stuff on the net, and that was it. See, there was a focal point for me to reach out because I had a problem. Coffee was dying because of cold in Myanmar, or Burma, if is the old name of the country. And then John was there, and he was accessible at that time before, again, it became superstardom after this Grand Solar Minimum picked off. So, having a repository or something where people can actually reach out to and coordinate and connect to in case they're seeking information. And that's truly about the best I can do too. There's been a gradual increase in people's awareness and understanding and wanting to learn more, but it's been a slow, just kind of trickle. There's been no vertical upward movement. It's been sort of that, couple percent, just kind of static. If you could follow that line out, eventually centuries out in the future, it would reach 100%. But for right now, it's got that slow upward trajectory to it. Nothing curving, just slow and steady. I don't know if you've seen the same thing, but I think if it comes to the pinch point, people will come looking.
I think I agree totally. And in the health field, I spent a career in the health sciences, and people come to me when they're sick or when they get the big diagnosis. And, we help them quite a bit, and a lot of times turn things around. But I'm always thinking, geez, it would have been nice if we would have seen you about 10 years ago, because this thing didn't happen overnight. It's like going broke. It's the old saying. It's like things happen gradually, then all of a sudden. And I think that's what we're going to see in all these things hitting critical mass now, and then coinciding, not coincidentally, with the solar minimum is, things have been happening gradually for a long time, but by the time people wake up, it's going to be all of a sudden, and a lot of people are going to suffer because of it. But I agree. I think that's what it's going to take, and not everybody's going to make it. And we all have choice, and we all want to be empathetic and help people as much as we can. But if people fail to just understand what's going on and stay in denial, then you can't fix that for them. So we will have to take care of our own and just provide the solutions. Michael, you were holding up one of David's books there. Maybe you guys could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, he was nice enough to send it to me, a manuscript version. You can get it online. It's called Climate Revolution, the Grand Solar Minimum. Understand.
Oh, nice. You printed that out. Excellent. It's a digital copy only, and thank you for printing it out. That's great. The reason we've kept it a digital copy only is because inside there's more than 250 hyperlinks that take you out. So if we're talking about, solar cycles and you don't know, like, I don't believe these guys, click and it'll take you out to, traditional resources through the ESA or NASA or something to explain what planets are. And then we come down into the whole second half of the book is about preparations. So I spent 4 months digging out those PDFs to try to find the best information I could. So when I talked about a greenhouse, I went through 20, 30, 40 different designs of, organizations or institutions or, development orgs that would have different protocols or some kind of designs for, a developing country to try to get out there. So I tried to put as much information as I could of the same information I would send somebody that said, this is the best I could find. Why don't you click on that? And then it'll put you all the designs. And we hyperlink everything that we thought was value out there so you could get much more information than just what's written in the book. Because again, it's all about information. And I suggest people to, if you're going to do any searching online, forget Google, go straight to the PDF search engine, because that's not very censored actually. It's a lot of just analytical research, PDF search engine, and you're going to get a bunch of hits on things you never knew were out there. But that's the best I could do for our particular time right now, is putting as much information out there with resources at your fingertips to provide the possible best outcome for you in terms of survivability. Everything's there, from the wild foraging to, do-it-yourself canning. Again, the whole post process of harvest after you grow something is one of the most important parts, but it's one of the parts where you're going to lose the most of what you grew if you don't do it correctly. So there's a whole section in there too on how to prepare it, how to store it. Just anything you can think about on food after you get it out of the garden, and co-planting, and just so many things in between. Click and it'll take you out to better sites that you can read and read and read and read and read more about. So it's just a guide to get you out to better sites to get you to the correct information.
Yeah, shout out to Craig at Radiant Creators. He sent me that manuscript. So I really appreciate that. David, where can folks find that online?
You can go to PayHip. We self-publish. We stayed away from Amazon due to the censorship, due to these type of issues. They're very not kind when it comes to things that go against the narrative in the listings and the ratings. So we just skip that altogether. Just go anywhere on any search engine, DuckDuckGo. We've gone and done some SEO in DuckDuckGo to try to get us to the front page there. On any search engine, if you just type in Climate Revolution, it'll pop up and it'll take you to the PayHip window. I appreciate you showing the book on here. I wasn't even thinking about talking about the book. It was just the solutions included there, I think, were good. It took us months and months and months to get the solutions section. The first part of it, talking about the science and explaining grand solar minimums. I mean, Bill and I, we that's all we talk about. So that was the really easiest part, to put it all together, because we had all the images already to plug in there and just explain it from, step 1, 2, 3, 4, what a grand solar minimum it is, what were some of the occurrences in the past, how it unfolded, what you can expect now. We got better tech, better communication, better global delivery systems. So it's not going to unfurl the same way it did in the 1600s or 800 AD in the Chinese, emperor's times. It's just not going to. It's going to be very different. So after that was taken forth, then we went into the solutions. I learned so much by putting that together as well.
Yeah, I read the whole thing, man. And I'll say one thing I loved about it was you guys did an amazing job, not only educating me about the sun, but with the climate change debate, refuting a lot of the nonsense right now with the anthropogenic stuff, and also just looking historically, right, at the how civilizations flourish in warmer times, and we're not even close to as far as global temperatures go compared to like the warmer Middle Age period or the Roman Empire. But just it's a really simple, easy read. Like it's really fun to read. It just you go through it pretty easily, and it just really lays it out for anybody who doesn't have a huge background in this. Like myself, it was really educational, and then I really enjoyed the solutions aspect. I think you guys did an incredible job. So I highly recommend this to anybody who's really interested in this. We're seeing hysteria everywhere. I mean, I think climate right now is the #1 trending topic on pretty much every platform. So besides the now impeachment stuff, but you did a great job, and there's just so much. It's just power packed with information. And I do recommend, while I had it printed out, I was like, oh man, there's so many hyperlinks I want to click right now. I can go down so many rabbit holes. But so yeah, the digital version makes the most sense. So please support David, get a copy of that, and enjoy the ride, because it is quite a read.
Also, again, you alluded to this. Where does your food come from? Because in that book, it was all about, do you even know where the food depot is in your city or whatever town? Where does that food come first? It's coming off a rail line probably, or it's coming in by truck delivery. Where does that stop first? Because there's got to be a depository where all shipments come in unless they're going directly to the store. Well, some of that stuff is not going directly to a Walmart that's been pre-packed. Some of it's coming into the city first, and then it's redistributed the same day, probably, or the next day going out. But where is that one central hub? And specifically, where is the food hub? If you're getting bulk cargo coming in of, let's say thousands of tons of grain on a train, where is that going to? Where are the storage facilities? Where are the silos? If the stores run out, those storage facilities are still going to have food that you're going to be able to access. What about the nurseries there that are growing, just like we're talking about right now, plants we've seen that aren't flourishing, or there's problems with yields or growing? What about the local nurseries? They know even better because they're seeing it firsthand. That's their job. That's their livelihood of loving those plants and getting them to grow so you want to buy them and take them home. They know exactly what grows in your area, what types of fruits, vegetables, plants that you can put out first so you don't have the learning curve of something might die because it's too cold in the winter. They will direct you down so many solid paths. And then we also have the co-ops that are operating, and different government co-ops that will actually give you free seeds and free plants and free trees if you pre-order it for the season coming up. And they're a plethora of knowledge as well. So how knowledgeable are you about the resources in your own community? Where do you find the food? And can you get somebody to give you that, the steep learning curve that you would have spent years that you don't have anymore failing on planting something that wouldn't grow correctly? So that's a whole nother part of, there was a whole chapter in that, like, where's your food coming from?
Yeah, no, and that's a great point as far as you were talking about what you've been growing, like was Moringa, which is, I know,
Moringa oleifera.
Yeah, and I looked into that a few months back because that was something that really interests me. And as a fan of permaculture and understanding, you need to come to grips where you live and what you can grow. It's really hard to grow that up in the Pacific Northwest just because of the zone we're in, unless you're doing it indoors. I know it's making more and more sense to go indoors for everything, but so we look at other variables or other types of similar type of nutrient dense herbs and stuff that we can grow in our climate. And so you're right. Look towards the local nurseries. Look towards if you have a Permaculture Guild or anything that you can access, and figure out, and just go into your local farmers markets, etc., and see what does well in your area, because you do need to grow for where you live. And permaculture is something we haven't really discussed yet here. It's something that I know Berre and Deb and we're really into, growing food forests and companion planting and using nature's natural growth cycles, biodynamic farming, etc., to really flourish. Getting to understand all this, it is a huge learning curve. Just someone who grows on my own property and all the failures I've had. So any any shortcut we can find or any way that we can help educate ourselves faster is spot on. That's a really good point.
Yeah, we've actually been nurserymen for quite a few years, a couple decades at least, and so we owned and operated 2 different nurseries, and we're too remote for that right now. But we shut down our last nursery south in Humboldt County in Northern California, and but what we created up here is a Permaculture Guild, and just trying to get people involved as far as understanding what we're moving into, so that we can start planning as a community, because we're fine here, we can cover a lot of our own needs, but we'd like to see the whole communities thrive through this. And our Permaculture Guild has gotten a lot of interest, and as part of that is old nursery people. We've kept all our accounts opening, and what you said is spot on. You have to know your resources and where to get everything. So we have accounts with all the the organic amendment companies and all the things you need to grow anything. And so what we created up here is a buyer's co-op for all the local people, whether they're home gardeners or small farmers, where they can get everything wholesale. And, we don't make anything out of it. We just cover our own costs, but it's part of what we think is important for communities to survive. And, especially, we have to take care of our own community, because we know that we're not going to be an island either when everything kind of hits. And it's already hitting. People say, well, when? Well, it's already started happening a long time ago. People just aren't aware of it yet. So we know that we'll be as strong as our community is. So you have to start thinking a little bit beyond yourself also, because we don't ourselves have all the skills we need. We can't provide for all the things that would allow us to have a ease of lifestyle through all this. And it's great, when you can get a community and everybody shares their skills, their resources. Now, permaculture, I spent almost a lifetime studying biodynamic gardening and kind of the old European alchemical school of, producing in that way and understanding how to grow with the larger patterns of nature and understand what they were in the first place. But in recent years, we've done more of the external certification process with permaculture, which gets you more into design and everything. And there's been a lot of valuable things that we've learned from that. It's a little bit too institutionalized for us. It's, like we did ours at Oregon State University, and it was okay. They had some good people up there, but they're still coming at it more of an institutionalized way of, like an academic science, so to speak, and rather than just getting your hands in the dirt and getting dirty and finding out, how to grow things firsthand. So the one thing I tell people, and I hear people all the time out there, especially preppers, they, live in urban areas and everybody's buying seeds and prepping, but they have no concept that, you don't just throw some seeds in the ground and have some food. You have to have a space. You have to learn how to grow it. It's a science. I mean, I spent the day yesterday with a farmer here in Southern Oregon, and the guy's been at it as long as I have been, and just a wealth of knowledge. So we're sharing information with each other, and I learned a tremendous amount just yesterday. And we talked about the solar minimum, by the way. I'm sorry I'm going all over here, but it was a good conversation that you guys would enjoy in their area in Southern Oregon, and he has massive acreage. They have caves on the property with geothermal properties and hot springs and things. So, we're kind of talking about, well, if it really ever gets real bad, then, we're going to take advantage of these natural features in our geography where you can keep warm no matter where you're at, and not only grow things, but, take care of the what the earth is providing inside as well. So, farmers around here are very aware of all these things that are happening, everything from geoengineering to the solar minimum. And we don't have to read a lot of books about solar minimum, because we've been noticing for a few years that things just aren't fruiting, things are growing slower, things aren't maturing properly. But fortunately, we have enough experience in order to, take measures and, compensate for some of these things. So, we're still doing okay. But yeah, there really needs to be on a grand scale if vast population segments, especially in urban areas, are going to have a fighting chance at all. Somebody's got to get out there and start doing things like yesterday. And we're gratified, and in small communities like ourselves, we're doing those things and starting to come together. But I think it's going to be a day late and a dollar short for most of the people out there. I think I failed to answer your question. In fact, I'm not sure what it was at this point. But yeah, those are the measures that we're taking just at a local scale.